स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा मृतङ्गमय। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। Let us offer our respectful salutations to Sri Ramakrishna, the embodiment of all religions, who showed us the spiritual path, who gave Swami Vivekananda to this world to awaken our willpower. People have become so low in spirit they are not able to achieve anything in their life which is worth the life. Willpower, what a tremendous strength it is. It has got tremendous significance in our life. A man without willpower is a man without a backbone. No spiritual life is possible without cultivating, harnessing, utilizing properly the willpower. Until and unless we open our eyes and see our horrible weakness of lack of willpower, there is no hope for freedom. You may go anywhere in the world. You can never get peace of mind. Even you may be taken by a rocket to heavens, even then you will never have peace of mind. It is to be earned. It is to be achieved by exercising tremendous willpower. Spirituality begins with the exercise of willpower. If you have no guts, forget about spirituality. Even to live a worldly life, you require certain amount of guts. What to speak of spirituality? Every moment of your life, you have to fight and fight all types of odds and circumstances, situations. You have to face number of crises in the life. So, Sri Ramakrishna, having seen this vacuum in human life, he prepared Vivekananda and gave it to the world. Let us be straightforward, be open to embrace the truth, not to be bogged down by dogmatism or fanaticism or fundamentalism. Don't entertain any ism in your life. Then only you will understand Vivekananda. Alternately, if you study Vivekananda, you will get rid of all sorts of this nonsense about religion. For the first time in the world, religion has been presented in its true color by Sri Ramakrishna. And gave the diamond, Swami Vivekananda, to show to the world what he meant by religion. Once Vivekananda was explaining what is material and what is not. He said, when the world is the end and God the means to attain that end, that is material. When God is the end and the world is only the means to attain that end, spirituality has begun. Swami Vivekananda said, when you pray, O Lord, give me my bread, my money, heal my diseases, do this and do that. Every time you say that, you are hypnotizing yourselves with the idea, I am the matter and this matter is the goal. Every time you try to fulfill a material desire, you tell yourselves that you are the body, that you are not spirit. This is a great awakening to overcome all types of weaknesses. This inspires our willpower to march onward in our life's journey. Swami Vivekananda, his words, his teachings, his parables, all magnificent. He was telling an incident. There was a vagrant, a lazy guy with low spirits, doesn't know what exactly willpower means. While he was walking along the road, he saw an old man sitting outside his home. He just asked about the whereabouts of a certain place. He wanted to know how far a particular village is from that place where he was inquiring. The old man saw this guy and became disgusted with him. What this fellow? A lazy idiot asking me the question. Why should I have to answer? He didn't answer. He just became indifferent. The old man became so indifferent to him, in spite of that man's asking him repeatedly the same question. That lazy guy became disheartened, as it were, and began to go in his own way. When he showed some kind of activity in his movements, then the old man stood up and said, "Well, the village which you have been asking is just only a mile from here." Then that lazy guy, he retorted, "What? Why did you not speak when I asked you before? How many times I asked you, kept indifferent? How is it now you are replying?" And the old man said, "Well, because then you seemed so halting and careless about proceeding, but now you are starting off in good earnest. I am seeing some movement in your limbs, so I am giving you the direction." So, telling this incident, this story, Swami Vivekananda roused the willpower of a disciple. Go and work. Don't think of the result even before starting to work. Do work. Die in work. The rest will come afterwards. The result will come afterwards. The result will be taken care of. You take care of how to do the work. Go and do the work. So, the disciple was activized, as it were. His consciousness was roused. He could not be lazy anymore. Once a person approached Swami Vivekananda and asked him what he should do to know God, how he was to get free. Everybody talks about God, Vivekananda saw him thoroughly. He had seen him also before. He knew what type of person he was. That person who was asking this question about God was stupid, dull person who knew nothing. He didn't have any desire to know anything. He was living the life of a brute. Because Swamiji knew about this person, he wanted to rouse his willpower. So, he asked him, "Can you tell a lie?" The man replied, "No." Then Vivekananda said to him, "To learn to do so." Swami Vivekananda remarked that it is better to tell a lie than to be a brute or a log of wood. He told him further, "You are inactive. You have not certainly reached the highest state, which is beyond all actions, calm and serene. You are too dull even to do something wicked." Swamiji just stirred his willpower so that he can become active in some way, and slowly, gradually, he will learn. The Upanishads, the great treasure of great culture, speak of strength. All the Upanishads admit there are human weaknesses. So it is all the more important to know the great significance of strength. Do not always think about your weakness and become weak still more. Weakness will not heal weakness. Would you try to wash dirt with dirt? Will sin cure sin? Will weakness cure weakness? It is only through strength that you can conquer any weakness. Abhihi, abhihi, the famous phrase of the Upanishads. Be fearless, be fearless. It's the most wonderful message of all the Upanishads. The cheer up man, Swami Vivekananda, awakened the people to this great reality and narrated the story of Alexander the Great confronting with the sage of India. You know, this incident has been recorded in the Greek history. The great Emperor Alexander was returning to his country with lot of wealth after conquering many countries. While he was returning on the way, he saw a sannyasin in the forest, stark naked, sitting upon a block of stone. He just approached him and began to talk with him. Soon he was amazed at the wisdom of the sage. Immediately the thought came to his mind, why not I request this sage to come and stay with him in his country? The sage of such intellect and wisdom is a great honor to be in his court. So Alexander tempted him with gold and comforts to make him agree to come to his place and live with him. When he gave this proposal, the sage just smiled over the king's offer of gold and other temptations. He said to him he needed nothing. At this point, the king, very haughty and egoistic, frightened the sage, saying, I will kill you if you don't come. Any other person in the position of the sage would have yielded to his threats to save oneself. But here is a person who is not afraid of death, who knew very well he is deathless. Because he knew his true self, he was very strong, with tremendous willpower, tremendous courage, tremendous boldness. When the king drew the sword to cut off his head, even at that point, the sage laughed loudly and said, O king, you never told such a falsehood in your life as you tell just now. Who can kill me? Me you kill? Emperor of the material world? Never. For I am spirit unborn and undecaying. Never was I born and never do I die. I am the infinite, the omnipresent, the omniscient. And you kill me, child that you are. That is strength. Alexander, first time he became aware of the true strength. Where does it lie? The Gita tells about the nature of Atman in second chapter, where the Lord says, Nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dahati pavakaha, nachainam kledayantyapo nashoshayati marutaha. This spirit, Atman, cannot be cut by swords, cannot be wet by water, cannot be blown away by the wind, cannot be burnt by fire. And everyone is that spirit. And this sage had that wonderful experience of his own self. He realized what he was, so he was not afraid of the emperor. He was not afraid of anything. So when the sage was saying this emphatically, the emperor was awakened to this great truth by that sage, who was radiating peace and joy all the time. Swami Vivekananda attacked weaknesses of any form, and he disliked superstitions. Superstitions. All these things that degrade your willpower. You lose your personality by succumbing yourself to superstitions and all sorts of unreal things in this world. Superstitions spring like mushrooms. It is because we are being carried away by superstitions in one way or other, we are suffering in one way or other. As long as the superstitions are there, so long we have to suffer and suffer and suffer. Get rid of them and be strong. That is the message of Vivekananda. He said a story. One day, an astrologer came to a king and said, "O king, I am a good astrologer. I knew the calculations of the stars, how the stars move, and so on. You are going to die in 6 months. It was not necessary for him to tell that to the king. Anyway, when he heard this, from that moment onwards, the king became more and more frightened. It had tremendous psychological effect upon him. The fear of death constantly harping on him. He was almost dying then and there from fear. There was a clever minister. He saw the pitiable condition of the king. Why does this happen? So he told the king, "Why are you believing so much about these astrologers? They are all fools." But the king would not believe him. He knew he was his minister. Now it is the responsibility of the minister to make the king believe what he had said about the astrologers. So he called for that astrologer again. "Come on, come to the palace. I want to speak to you." He came. Then in the presence of the king, the minister asked him whether his calculations were correct. Go through the calculations once more and tell again what exactly you want to tell. The astrologer said that there could not be any mistake on his part. But even then, in order to satisfy the minister, he went through the whole of the calculations again and then said, what he said was perfectly correct. The king would die within 6 months. Then the minister saw the king's face at the time. His face became very pale. Then the minister asked the astrologer, "Well, when do you think you will die?" The astrologer replied, in 12 years. The minister quickly drew his sword and separated the astrologer's head from the body and said to the king, "Do you see that liar? He is dead this moment. Wait 12 years." That opened the eyes of the king. Another incident, Swami Vivekananda would always tell incidents, anecdotes and parables to impress upon the people the great significance of what he wanted to say. It's not so easy to rouse the willpower. There is so much of tamas covering our willpower. We have lost everything. Even the little bit what we are having also will go if we behave in the same way as we have been behaving. If we don't learn the lesson, then we are the sufferers. Mahatmas come and go. They do their job. If you don't do your job, then you are the loser, not the Mahatma. So Swami Vivekananda narrated another incident. A young man, he asked Vivekananda, "What will become of me next year?" Vivekananda asked him why he asked him so. That young man answered, "I have lost all my money and have become very, very, very poor." Swamiji remarked, "Money is the only god of many beings." Weak men, when they lose everything and feel themselves weak, try all sorts of uncanny methods of making money. And some people come to astrology and all these things. There is a Sanskrit proverb which says, "It is a coward and the fool who says, 'This is fate.'" Swami Vivekananda remarked, "If a star disturbs your life, it would not be worth a cent." You will find that astrology and all these mystical things are generally signs of a weak mind. Therefore, as soon as they are becoming prominent in our minds, we should see a physician, take good food and rest. Swami Vivekananda, personification of strength and willpower. In another place, Swamiji said, "We are flying like hunted hares from all that is terrible, and like them hiding our heads and thinking we are safe." He narrated an incident that happened in his life. Once he was in Benares, passing through a place where there was a large tank of water on one side and a big wall on the other. It was on the grounds where there were many monkeys. They are huge brutes. They didn't want Vivekananda to pass through their street. They have blocked the street. They are so ferocious. They howled and shrieked and clutched at his feet as he passed. As they pressed closer, Swami Vivekananda began to run. But the faster he ran, the faster came the monkeys, and they began to bite at him. It was almost impossible to escape. Just at that point, he heard someone calling out to him, "Face the brutes, face the brutes." Vivekananda took that idea immediately, turned and faced the monkeys, and they fell back and finally fled. All the monkeys, they didn't even turn back to see Vivekananda. He stood in such a way, all the monkeys were frightened and fled. That was a lesson for all life. Face the terrible. Face it boldly. Like the monkeys, the hardships of life fall back when we cease to flee before them. If we are ever to gain freedom, it must be by conquering nature, never by running away. Cowards never win victories. We have to fight fear and troubles and ignorance if we expect them to flee before us. What is death? What are terrors? Fly from evil and terror and misery, and they will follow you. Face them and they will flee. The whole world worships ease and pleasure, and very few dare to worship that which is painful. To rise above both is the idea of freedom. Unless man passes through this gate, he can't be free. We all have to face this. Swami Vivekananda narrated a story told by Sri Ramakrishna about the sin of killing a cow. In the end, the owner of the garden had to suffer for the sin of killing the cow. The story told by Vivekananda. A man had laid out a beautiful garden, was taking care of all the plants and shrubs and trees with utmost care, watering them regularly and supervising them, walking through the garden as many times as possible. One day, a cow walked into it. It damaged the plants and shrubs, which was so carefully tended by the owner. So when the owner came to see the garden, he saw many plants were damaged. He came to know that that was the mischief done by the cow, became terribly angry, gave some blows to the cow in such a way he literally killed her. Immediately the man knew it was a terrible sin that will come to him because of this act. He has killed the cow. So where the sin would go? So he began to find out a way to escape the sin. He thought within himself. He thought he was a very wise man. There are so many gods and goddesses, as there are so many human beings. There are so many gods and goddesses too. Indra, the king of the gods, is said to be the presiding deity of the hand. So, he concluded that Indra should be blamed for it. Because Indra was the presiding deity of the hand, so he was not responsible. Indra should be responsible. So Indra, because he was God, he came to know about this allegation. Himself came to this man's garden in the guise of a Brahmin. Then he began to chat with him and went with him for a walk in the garden. And Indra, in the guise of a Brahmin, he was appreciating and admiring the so many varieties of plants and trees in the garden, and he was full of praise and put him lot of questions. How all these things could be so meticulously done. Every time this owner of the garden was boasting to him that was his own handiwork. He did this, he did that. Then Indra exposed his cunning with a cutting remark. Well, everything here has been done by you, and Indra alone is responsible for the killing of the cow. You can't fool me. Swamiji said, nowadays everybody says, I am acting as I am being directed by the Lord, and thus throws the burden of both his sins and virtues on the Lord, as if he is himself the lotus leaf in the water. If everybody can truly live always in this mood, then he is a free soul. But what really happens is that for the good I have the credit, but for the bad, thou God art responsible. Without the attainment of the fullness of knowledge of divine realization, such a state of absolute reliance on the Lord doesn't come. He who is truly and sincerely reliant on the Lord goes beyond all idea of the duality of good and bad. Another important teaching of Vivekananda. This was given by Swami Vivekananda at the Thousand Island Park, where he trained American disciples. He literally lifted them to the highest state of experience. It was a tremendous training, and Vivekananda could do that. He said in one of his class talks, give up, renounce the world. Now we are like dogs strayed into a kitchen and eating a piece of meat, looking round in fear, lest at any moment someone may come and drive them out. Instead of that, be a king and know you own the world. This never comes until you give it up and it ceases to bind. Give up mentally if you do not physically. Give up from the heart of your hearts. Have renunciation. This is the real sacrifice, and without it, it is impossible to attain spirituality. That's why spirituality is very difficult. Do not desire for what you desire, you get, and with it comes terrible bondage. It is nothing but bringing gnosis on us. Gnosis, N-O-S-E-S. As in the case of a man who had 3 boons to ask. Then Swami Vivekananda told this wonderful story. It's very interesting story. There was a poor man. He was able to propitiate a certain god who gave him 3 boons of dice. The poor man became excited. What? Now I have got 3 boons, I can do whatever I want. So immediately the first thought, he ran to his wife, his life's partner, communicated this wonderful news. Immediately the reaction from the wife's side was, well, let us ask for wealth first. Wealth, money. That's very important. To this man said, well, you know, both of us have very ugly noses, for which people, whenever they look at us, they laugh. So let us first cast for beautiful aquiline noses. But the wife was for wealth first, and so she caught hold of his hand to prevent him from throwing the dice. But the man hastily snatched his hand away and at once threw the dice, exclaiming, let us both have beautiful noses and nothing but noses. Immediately both their bodies were covered over with many beautiful noses. But what happened? It proved such a great nuisance to them. Then both of them agreed to throw for the second time, asking for the removal. No, we shouldn't have these noses. It was done. But in the process, they also lost their own little ones by that. Now they don't have noses at all. Now 2 boons are gone already. Only 1 boon remains to be asked. Having lost their noses, they looked uglier than before. They wanted to have 2 beautiful noses, but they feared to be questioned about their transformation, lest they should be regarded by all to be 2 big fools who could not mend their circumstances, even with the help of 3 boons. So, both of them agreed to get back their ugly little noses and the dice were accordingly cast. Same position number 1. So what is the lesson? We never get freedom until we are self-contained. Self is the savior of self, none else. Swamiji further said, drinking the cup of desire, the world becomes mad. Day and night never come together. They never come together. Day and night never come together. So desire and the Lord can never come together. Give up desire. That requires a lot of willpower. Another important point Swamiji impressed was purity. Purity is our real nature. Don't condemn anybody as a sinner. When Adam fell, he fell from purity. To regain that purity is the object of all religion. All men are pure. All men are good. Some objections can be raised to them, and you ask why some people are brutes. That man you call a brute, he is like the diamond in the dirt and dust. He is also diamond, but it is covered by dirt and dust. Brush the dust off, and it is a diamond, just as pure as if the dust had never been on it. And we must admit that every soul is a big diamond. Nothing is baser than calling our brother a sinner. It's because we are not aware of our true nature. We are behaving in a dubious way. Explaining this teaching, he gave a story. A lioness once fell upon a flock of sheep and killed a lamb. In that process, that lioness gave birth to a child. That baby lion began to grow along with the sheep. It began to eat grass as the sheep also eat. It began to imitate all the habits of the sheep. So the baby lion which grew among the sheep behaved like sheep in every manner. It is totally unaware of its lion nature. One day it so happened a great lion came from the forest. He was amazed to see this sheep lion and tried to get it away from the sheep. But the sheep lion is also running away as he approached. Then the big lion waited till he caught the sheep lion alone. He seized it and carried it to a clear pool of water and said, Look your face in the water. Are you a sheep? The sheep lion, seeing its picture reflected from the water, said, "No, my face doesn't resemble sheep. I am a lion and not a sheep. So let us not think we are sheep, but be lions, and don't bleat and eat grass like sheep." This way, Swami Vivekananda tried to rouse the low spirit of the people. He never tolerated weakness of any sort, anywhere in the world. So his whole life was built upon strength, and he wanted every one of us to realize our true nature. We are immortal beings. Shrunvantu vishve amritasya putraha. We are all Amrita Putras. Why should we be afraid of life? Why should we be afraid of situations and crises? Face them squarely, boldly, courageously. Then you will become qualified to realize the truth. Then you become really peaceful and joyful in life. With these words, I conclude my talk. Thank you. Sahana bhavatu, sahanau bhunakto, saha viryam karavavahai, tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. May the Divine Spirit protect us. May He guide us. May He give us strength and right understanding. May we not hate each other. May love and harmony be with us all. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.